Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Hello, Jim Dalton.
Good morning.
You are co-hosted.
Alrighty, thank you very much.
I like having you here riding shotgun.
We haven't been attacked for a long time.
No, there was one event, and so we increased everyone's insurance rates. We removed all the tire swings from all the schools in the country because of that child breaking her leg. What's going on with that? Had a little difficulty getting Wirecast going this morning, but it is now. So, hello, dear friends. Some of you were here last night. We had that wonderful reading by Vanessa Redgrave of Joan Didion's The Year of Mindful Thinking. That's funny. The year of magical thinking. I'd like to say I did that on purpose, but I didn't. I'm wondering, is anyone that wasn't there interested in seeing it? Listening? Yes? Okay. I will... I'll put it somewhere. I guess Zoom would be, not Zoom. Anyway, I'll put a link to it in my blog later today. All right, it is January the 5th, 2022. A lot of twos, 2022. Must have tremendous numerology meaning. This is the year when everyone in this group attains full awakening. How about that? Ajahn Chah came to the United States one time before I knew of him. I was practicing, but he came. And he was in Seattle with a rather large audience. And he asked them, how many of you want to experience full awakening in this lifetime? Lots of hands went up. And then he asked, so, how many of you are coming with me tomorrow to spend a year with me in Wat Pah Pong? And the numbers were down. So, we're here. We're not at Wat Pah Pong. And we have every opportunity to wake up and practice and become more loving and kind. And what else is there to do? All right. I didn't hear that.
Recording.
It was me, Robert. It was Denise.
Recording.
Record.
All right.
What else is there?
What else is there to do? To record. Yeah. All right. Preparing to record. Preparing to pushing button.
Facebook?
Facebook's on. All right.
In progress.
You sure are familiar to me. It's wonderful. This is a Derek Walcott poem from his collected poems, 1948 to 84. It's amazing the footprints we leave behind, isn't it? He had poems come to him and he wrote them down and gathered them together, and we have them now when he's long gone. We do leave quite awake. Okay, this is called love after love. Give wine. Give bread. Give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror. And each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread. Give back your heart to itself. To the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror. And each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. And why not begin with love? It's already quite a loving act to get up in the dark. In the dark on a rainy morning here. Had you need to mute, please. To love means that there is room for everything. It means that we're already okay. There's not something to achieve. We awaken to us in our completion of the moment. So we might set off, we might remind, we might sit down with love. I want to meet myself. I want to know that that I take to be myself. I want to know this. Following the Buddha's slicing and dicing of things, I want to know the body, the feelings, the mental formations, and all the mental objects, the objects of consciousness. I want to understand that they are all anicca. They are all dukkha. They are all anatta. which doesn't mean I want them to change. And in this aspiration, I take support and refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And now we sit. And I invite you to sit like rocks. Decide not to move until the gong rings. Let your coffee get cold. You can heat it up after. It'll free you from wondering, when shall I have a drink? Become a giant redwood parked. Come home and inhabit this material form, this body. Notice, be awake to the rising and falling. Be awake to the mind with all of its various entertainments, its variations of thought, of mood and emotion. And I'm going to go quiet now until the gong rings. all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. May those who are dying today, those who are being born today, those in great wealth and those in great poverty, those sleeping in warm beds and those in storefronts, our close relatives of the air, the earth, and the waters, may we experience our interbeing with all beings, beginning, of course, with each other and with our loved ones, with our pets, the friends we work with, spouses and former spouses, the children, the grandparents, the mother in the nursing home, all of us. I am going to forego announcements today, but I am going to show you a few pictures. These are the stairs from the living room up to the new fire door between the living room and the Dharma hall. It now has the same carpet as the living room. And this with a fisheye lens, which distorts it remarkably. This is the pass-through that's always had that ugly carpet in it. It's now got this carpet. This is the recently cleaned, not shampooed yet, but P&C Construction has hired someone to do some cleaning of the Dharma hall. This pile of furniture here will be uncovered. The plastic will come off in the next couple of days. And we're planning how to get the movers to come in to move this down to the tenants' offices. Here's obviously the new door out to the ramp. There it is, a different view. Oh, these are my notes. This had to be fixed, and there's a few things here. This is down at the bottom of the stairs to the basement. This fitting here has to be changed. And this is the very temporary railing for the front porch, so we can get our temporary occupancy permit. And here, this is what the ramp looks like at night. Kind of elegant, I think. So there. That's my show and tell. So I now invite you to share whatever it is to be shared in your heart this morning.
Robert, it's Carol.
Hello, Carol. Carol on her hilltop.
Yes. It's so lovely to be able to see the progression of what's happening at PIMC. I'm just sorry I'm so far away. Maybe someday I'll get to come. I had my first MRI yesterday, and as you know, you have to be perfectly still. And I could hear your voice saying, "Sit like a rock." So I told myself,
Mm.
"Lie like a rock." And that's what I did for the next 25 minutes.
It's
And it
noisy,
was,
isn't it?
thank you. Oh, incredibly. Anyway, I just wanted to say how appreciative I was of being able to hear Vanessa Redgrave's reading last evening, and just how relevant it's becoming at this stage of life, thinking about the different aspects of death. And as most of us, I grew up in a culture and a generation that just really didn't want to focus on death and protected children from death. And
Yeah.
when I was, even as a young person or a young adult, I was 19 and um, married, and my husband was killed in a car accident shortly after. And
Well,
it's all a blur. Everything was totally taken care of for me. I don't remember any aspects of what um, what happened um, after after his death. It was, but in any case, living in a small community, I'm becoming much more aware of people dying all around me on a regular basis, and I've become um, involved with hospice and part of our Way to Go group and our community-led death group here, as you know, on Quadra. And one of the exercises, we have workshops, and one of the exercises at the last workshop was to start to put together a death plan, just to think about what we would like to have happen at the time of our death, or as we are moving into death, and where we would like to be, and who we would like to have around us, what we would like to have around us, and that kind of thing, which was a very, very interesting process to move through. And the first thing that I preluded mine with was that I it would be important not to be attached to any of these things that I would like to have happen, as much as they might be ideals or desires that I'd have to let go of attachment right off the bat, because just like with a birth plan, things don't always go the way we plan. And I remember when I had my first daughter, I had this before I had her, a very elaborate birth plan. And then she ended up having the cord wrapped around her neck 3 times, and the placenta wasn't functioning. And so I had to, everything in my birth plan totally went out the window. So that was
right.
the first part. But when I started thinking about what I wanted, I felt like I would ideally love to be at home, to die at home, because I lived in this beautiful forest. And I would love to have people and friends around me who, if they were willing to come and do um, share readings, and I've started compiling a list of some of the poems from the morning meditations and some of the poems that I used to share in my yoga classes. I would love to have yogic and Tibetan chanting, if possible, and invite just anybody, friends and family, if they were willing to come and sit and meditate around my bedside. And then after death, I would like to have just be left for a while in case my spirit is still hovering, and to have more of the same, and then to have a natural burial in our Quadra cemetery, followed by a potluck at Rebecca Spit, our local beach, weather permitting, whoever would like to be there.
Hmm.
And then I also started thinking that in this time of technology and Zoom, that at least during the death process, it might even be a possibility to connect with the Sangha, and which is kind of a novel idea. But I, thought, who knows how long I'll live? I mean, could be hopefully a long time, and but in 20 years it could be a very different Sangha. So anyway, it was like I say, it was a very interesting process to go through, and thank you for indulging me. But I just thought it might be food for thought for other people. So thank you again for all being here.
Thank you, Carol. No indulgence. Actually, you just offered us quite a beautiful gift. Thank you. There is a profession called death doulas. There are doulas who help with birth, and there's a labor of death, which there are people who are devoting their lives to helping us with. And her last name is Borchert. There are 4 women here in Portland who I think they were doing Morning Star, if that was the name of their company. And they did several workshops at PIMC that were very powerful. And in one of them, they showed us, I guess, and then they invited us to begin the writing of our own. They had a letter, basically, and it was outside the room where the person who was dying was, and it said, "This is how I would like you to act." And it was things like, "Please don't touch me," or "Please touch me." And there are 4 books. Please read from them. And so some do's and don'ts. And it's a way to give some guidance to visitors. And it was a brilliant idea. I thought, oh gosh, I would never have thought of that. But so you've invented that for yourself. That's beautiful. Yeah. I sometimes feel a little self-conscious about this focus on death that I have fallen into. And actually, my daughter Tara was playfully making fun of me at Christmas dinner about. I went to a baseball game with her now very serious partner, and it's a funny way to put it, very serious partner. They're doing a wonderful dance of getting closer and closer. And he invited me to a baseball game to get to know each other, and we had a wonderful time. In fact, we got home. When I got home, I told Jennifer that if Tara stops dating him, I'm going to date him, because he's a wonderful fellow. But anyway, I forget how she said it, but oh yeah, it was that she talked to him afterwards, and he said, "Well, I certainly learned that he's a meditation teacher, and that he's pretty interested in death. He told me that I was going to die, and Maggie, his daughter, that we were all going to die while we were watching the baseball game." And it's true. I wouldn't say it's obsessed, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing, and that as happened in the book that was read last night, there she was sitting at dinner with her otherwise functional, healthy husband who had a heart problem, and then he was gone. And of course, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one person in their time plays many parts. So, thank you, Carol. Hey, I do have a question. How do you handle all those stairs in the snow? Must be hard.
Yes, well, it's very challenging. Well, because I had a bike accident at the beginning of the summer, I've become much more conscious of every step, mindful that I take. But as far as the snow, Michael is wonderful at getting out there every day and just clearing the steps. And actually yesterday, because we have a very long driveway, as you know,
Yeah.
he's been going on Zoom, and he's researching different handmade plows you can make, very simple. And yesterday a friend came over and they actually created this plow that he can attach to his truck to clear the driveways. We'll see
Huh.
how it works because they're predicting a lot more snow.
Yeah, that's a long and with a hill. I mean, you're in there. What a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does Lori have her hand up to speak?
Lori, is your hand up intentionally? I think not. There is a hand.
Well, I'd like to speak up since the silence here. I never thought that I could make so many new discoveries about the most significant death in my family was the death of my father when I was 10. And I've told many, many stories about that. And listening last night to Vanessa Redgrave's voice, which almost sounded like it was breaking many times, and then telling the whole story from the point of view as a spouse, as a woman, watching her partner die. I realized I've never thought of that death of my father from my mother's point of view. And I've never thought about her cleaning out the closet of his clothes and shoes. None of that's in my memory. I have no. There's listening to that, I realized how projected into some place I must have been for, I guess, a couple of years, because I don't have memories of that house or their bedroom or sitting at dinner or anything like that from across that whole 2-year period. We eventually moved, and then all my memories shifted to a new place, and there was no immediate connection with my dad's death in that place. So, my memories shifted a great deal after that. And I was older, and I was more my own person, and I was making my own life. But that experience of 90 minutes of watching death and the reaction to death from a woman's point of view was completely new. and now my mother's been gone for 30 years, so I can't go back and say what was it like for you. And it was like this tremendous remorse came up, and I never asked her. It was too difficult. Neither one of us would have had the skills to handle it. But I really appreciate Joan Didion's ability to get grounded in the details of such an overwhelming experience, and reach out to share. Robert talked about leaving a wake behind. She's left that gift to share with everybody. It's just or anybody that's interested in pursuing it, and it just blew me apart last night in a good way. It just expanded, made the heart can hold. There's room in the heart for everything. I suddenly had a whole lot more room for my mother who went through exactly the same experience on the surface. You know, she lost her husband, I lost my father, but my memory is so egocentric and small compared to what I heard last night. It really blew me away. So thank you very much, Robert. That really was a. We talked a little bit last night about changing your life, and that experience I think will change all my life forever. Thank you.
10 years old, huh?
Yeah. When at a certain point in my life, 50 years later, I had a severe breakdown, and coming out of that breakdown, I spent 2 years working with a group here in Portland that helps children grieve their parents. And so at that point, I went into the experience of little Jimmy dealing with death through the experience with these children that I was introduced to in this program here in Portland. And
That was the Dougie Center, right?
the Dougie Center. I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, marvelous place.
Dougie Center. It was an amazing experience. And ever since then, I've spent time, often saying, all right, Jimmy, we're going to sit and be quiet and see what comes up about that death today, And so I continue to travel with him through my experiences. He's always part of what I'm doing, especially with grandkids. But luckily, my grandkids have not experienced anything like the death of a parent. But I'm just aware of shifting my attention into that 10-year-old boy, and then the young people around me. Great lessons. Thank you, Dougie Center.
Thank you, Jim Dalton.
Hey everybody, it's Birch.
Hello, Birch.
Good morning. It was an incredible experience to be in Sangha last night. But to share that experience. In many ways, it made it doable. I'm not sure I would have had the courage or the wherewithal to have done it myself, by myself. I found it was almost the experience of feeling terrified, feeling the terror of that level of awareness in that level of pain, and what a consciousness. It was truly boggling to know, to be aware of how somebody could be in such excruciating pain and be aware of it, and then communicate it with such profound mastery, such profound gift, which made the beauty of the gift itself, both the talent and the ability to actually write it, made the pain of being in it with her bearable. And being with the Sangha, it made the refuge of Sangha, made it bearable. And then, of course, the mirror of I mean, just the terror begins with her saying, this is going to happen to me, to all of us, if it hasn't already happened. And yeah, it's profoundly perception altering experience. I can feel, I too lost a mother at a very young age, and there's a sensation of a cracking open. I don't know any other word to describe. It's brought, and Jim's gift of your sharing this morning, and Carol and others, is that sense of returning back to these, what would be, we would understand to be traumatic experiences, but in terms of the actual perception process, this cracking open and into. I remember the 8-year-old being able to walk in nature and feel and experience life very differently when all that safety. Joan talked a lot about, she kept returning back to what is safe, and this need for the fire and the circle, and trying to create a level of safety, which ultimately might be delusional, and yet it's so filled with compassion. It makes so much sense that we would want to create any kind of container in the face of the inevitable. So I'm also struck by, again, what a friend calls the mother tongue, when synchronicity kind of leads consciousness to pay more attention. And just you hearing this 4 months ago, and deciding and working so diligently to put it together, and then of course Joan Didion dying not so many days ago, and just the sense of timing, and even the kerfuffle of you trying to get at the beginning, trying to get it together, and again bringing consciousness to, wow, anxiety could control this moment, but naming it. And then the gift of that, of course, I was writing about it this morning, is the gift of that. It brought us almost, and I say this gently and lovingly, but a backhanded invitation just to use this opportunity to meditate, to bring ourselves into a meditative state as we waited for the program to begin. And I realized the gift of that was again to be in a call to attention in order to receive this extraordinary gift. So, thanks for letting me. There's just so much here, and I'm just so grateful that we've got a place to process and some of this together.
Were you 6 when your mom died? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was 8. Yeah.
8.
Yeah, she was my adoptive mother.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a beauty in pain, but it's a lonely beauty, and that was the gift of last night. Is to be in that pain, somebody else's expression of it, and that beauty. To be in it together was transformative.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Joy.
Hello, Joy.
So synchronicity, I'm just amazed. My friend, a good friend of mine's daughter is dying, probably today. She's 33 years old and has had a very difficult cancer journey for over a year now. So that hasn't worked. So I'm just before the meditation, I was wondering, well, what should I say to her? Because it is catastrophic and agonizing, and the pain goes on for a long time. So I'm just thinking what to say or how to be there for her. I remember when the baby was born, it was such a joyful experience, and so strange that it's over now. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Joy.
Hi,
Hello,
Mark,
Margaret.
Margaret. I wanted to thank you, Robert Birch, for talking about your experience with being a child. I, my kids, we lost their dad. I was 33 and they were 5 and 11, and it was in an accident. He was electrocuted, so it was over, and we never got to see him because he was burned. And um, and I've watched my kids grow up uh, with that pain, and they amaze me. Um, we all had our own place, and so I always, how do you have your own pain and then also your children's pain, um, and so it creates a different life. I feel like we have different perspective than a lot of people. Um, so it helps to hear other people's stories and to know that um, we're not alone. Uh, we all have to walk our life journey with all the stuff we get. We never know what. So, so thank you for the people who were children who lost parents. Thank you for talking about that. It helps me.
Hi, Robert and everyone. I'm gonna take a huge risk for me right now. Um, because for a couple of reasons, I'm gonna start where I can talk a little bit more easily. There are times it's nobody's fault. I mean, obviously it's not the fault. And this is a key moment where I feel more alienated being here and more traumatized because my experiences are so different. And I listened to all the beauty and I did not see any of it. But I want to get to something that actually is, first of all, Joan Didion. I had the privilege, I'm a writer who hasn't been writing, and I lived in LA when she and John were living there. I had the privilege of meeting her many times. I've read everything she's ever written. So everything that Joan did, if she's been doing that since the 70s, that's the way she writes, and that was the way she lived. And she said, I don't know what I feel until I write it. Some of us are the opposite. We know what we feel and therefore don't write it. And so I have not read the book in a while, but and then because I read after her death, every article, I learned some stuff about how the director of the play that Vanessa did, Vanessa Redgrave, I don't know her, so I should call her by her whole name, did, was very difficult for Joan because it went beyond her limit. I don't know if Vanessa talked about that. I'm waiting for the book, and because I need to do that privately to read that. But putting in about Quintana, her daughter, was where it nearly broke her because she didn't have the lifelong defense of being able to deal with this. I'm not taking anything away, and then stuff that I'm not going to talk about, knowing about some of her personal life and things that so influenced everything she does and wrote. So that's not a bad way to feel different, but I'm just expressing that. And that's why I needed to do this alone, because maybe that's obvious. But now the difficult thing, one of the traumas that I deal with now is re-traumatized, because this is how it came for me. My dad was in a nursing home He had dementia, but it was never that bad, really, because he broke his back. My mother could have had him at home. She could have used every cent, but she couldn't bear anybody in her kitchen and doing anything. And even we forgot about that. So I was there for a month and a half. My one sister was disowned. Because I am who I am and because of all she did, she really hated me for it. When I had a suicide that I almost died 12 years ago, it'll be in February, I was in a coma. My mother said, look what she did to us. When my father died, she did not want us there. She went hysterical. She said she couldn't do that otherwise. And what freaked me out is in Florida, so many people die that there's a backup. And so I had this image of my father, who was very passive, but I loved him very much. I loved my mother too. In the freezer for weeks, it seemed, maybe 10 days. And then he was cremated. And then with my mother, because looking at me and me being there, I guess maybe it was her guilt, she didn't want me there. She didn't want my other sister. At the nursing home, they didn't even know we existed, except for my one sister who lives in denial, and it showed up in her family. And so I kept saying, even my sister said, let Eileen come. I wasn't working. No. My job was to drive her to the nursing home. The reason it was a distance is because the social worker told me, and she was in tears, the ones that were right near where my mother lived, after 20 minutes of talking to my mother, they wouldn't take her. Notice I said her. They didn't want to deal with her. And so she died. My sister from Boston couldn't get there. What she wanted was to be, she saved my dad's ashes, and she always said, death was always talked about. And I think that's sort of common in the, at least in the New York Jewish background, or just minority. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but that was my experience. And so she always had it planned and arranged that their ashes would be combined, and they would do it off the coast in Florida. And my sister, the only time I've ever disappointed my sister, the other one wasn't, she was disowned, so I was the one who told her, wanted me to come. And I said, I can't be there to do this when I wanted to be there. And so starting out with really horrible things being done to me, not so much physically, that's how it ended. And so this is very hard, but I feel like I need to share this. And even though some of you may be repelled when I'm saying, because it doesn't fit anything I'm hearing, and I don't envy anybody losing a parent young, but the best thing that happened to me, and the only reason I've been able to heal, is that my mother's dead at 93 and can't torment me anymore. And that's my reality. And I wish it were different. And I just hope you can understand not so much that, but why. It's an act of bravery a lot of times to be here. And it isn't taking anything away from anybody. And I'm all alone. So I know probably I will die in a nursing home unless I die in my sleep. And my mother had said all she wanted to do was die in her sleep. So of course she didn't. And the only thing today came out of it is where it made me laugh. And that's one of my, ways of feeling a little bit better, is I kind of thought, gee, they ought to play Joni Mitchell. And then I got to sing on one Judy Collins song. And I thought, well, I could die singing along. And that's my reality. So I'm sharing it for whatever it's worth.
Thank you, Eileen. My goodness. That's quite a burden you carry. But not all by yourself. Now there's a few hearts carrying you. A lot of hearts.
Thank you. And I like that I have a lot of courage, and I haven't always been able to show it here because it always feels so contrary. But I come every day and I learn, and it's helpful. So I'm proud of myself for doing this. So I'm not coming away feeling bad. I'm coming away saying that in every other area, I really do try to speak my truth.
I'm glad to hear you share this, and it doesn't feel contrary to me, because what you're sharing is your experience, your lived experience, your felt experience. And what else could you possibly share? I mean, you could share something superficial and blah, 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 some thoughts about something, but this is your deeply experienced, in some ways traumatic truth. And how utterly human of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Human beings. Please bear with me a second. I want to look for something. Okay, this will do it. Guess I'll move it over to the other screen. How can I make this bigger? Can I? I don't think I can. I don't want to mess around for a long time. So I want to share a screen. And I want to call to the altar of our hearts Stephen Levine and Andrea. Stephen, I would not be sharing this with you today. I wouldn't be doing my life in many ways like I'm doing it today without Stephen. I wish I could thank him again. He came to Brighton Bush and he did what we're doing here, but live, and he allowed and encouraged people to open their hearts and to feel what had been previously unfeelable and unknowable. I was speaking with somebody just a couple of days ago about something he did at Brighton Bush. Stephen Levine. He and Andrea were together teaching. And one afternoon, he took a rope, and at the far side of the meadow, he made a semicircle up against the woods. And then he sat in there for the afternoon, and he told us that, and there were about 150 people. Oh, goodness, that startled me. I'm going to let the dog out. Yikes. That was loud. Good. He sat on the edge of the wood. I'm still all a Twitter inside. He sat at the edge of the woods and heard confession. He told people that this is sacred ground, and you may tell me anything. And he said, I've done this before, and I have heard of murders and many other heinous things, and I promise you nothing will ever go anywhere. And so there was a line, and people went and sat there and cried, and about 100 feet away there was another semicircle of rope, and Andrea sat there, And she said that she would be taking on the attributes of the Divine Mother, and that anyone who wanted to be held could be held. And people came and laid in their lap, and the sobbing from these two places was a whole afternoon of heartbreak and heart opening and healing. It was really beautiful. He was an amazing guy. I helped him a little bit on those retreats. I taught the walking meditation. I brought him to Portland once and created a big event. And we were walking to the cabins on a trail that no longer exists. And I said something about, I feel inadequate, so inadequate as a teacher, because I don't have my act really together. I sometimes get so upset and so on. And he stepped in front of me. I remember this so vividly. He stepped in front of me and said, Robert, every time I meet someone who really has their shit together, they're standing in it. And I've remembered that hundreds of times when I'm, this teaching role is, it's a challenge sometimes. And often. But I often think of Stephen and the good that he did. One other little story I'll tell you, I was there with my first wife and Luke, I guess. Luke, my baby, my first child, who's now 40. God, that was 40 years ago. We were at lunch and we had, well, it's a long story, but Kathleen's grandmother, who was a very wounded, angry person, and we had brought her to Portland, and she was in an apartment. I visited her twice. She was less than I passed her apartment every day on my way home from work. I stopped twice because she was so angry. She was hateful, and I just would not expose myself to that. But anyway, she would very frequently say, "What about this Buddha stuff? The Buddha." And Kathleen was talking with Stephen at lunch about it, and she said, "What could we do?" And he said, "Well, you could try this." And he said, "The next time she does that, you say, 'Buddha? The Buddha's here? Have you seen the Buddha? Why are you bringing up the Buddha? Fantastic. Where is he?" That was his suggestion for dealing with crazy old, angry, hurt Nema. So that was my paean of great gratitude to Stephen Levine, who I still, last thing, I had it as a paper book. Now I have it as an electronic book. On the flight, on the red eye to my mother when she had her big stroke, I was reading Who Dies. When my dad died, I read Who Dies. It's my talisman, and it's wonderful guidance for what to do when someone's dying or died. So hooray for Stephen Levine. Stephen and Andrea. Well, it's 8:30. Anybody else want to share anything? Seems like a very open field right now.
What is that Who Dies that you read? I don't know what that is.
Stephen Levine wrote several. He and Andrea worked with the dying. Their career, their calling was that, and he wrote several books, and one of them is called Who Dies. Stephen was a poet before he was a spiritual teacher, and a poet and publisher. And heroin addict early on. There's Tim. You were at those workshops. Isn't that where we met, maybe, at Stephen Levine?
Yeah, you did a walking meditation, and my friend Richie Heckler said, we should get Robert down to Eugene sometime. Let's go talk to him. And I said, wait, he's a teacher. He's a friend of Stephen's. We can't just walk up to him and talk to him and invite him to Eugene.
Well, I'm glad you did.
I know. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Stephen was wonderful. Or early 80s. I think the one I went to was the first. Well, I went to several with him. And the first one, yeah, I met you. And it was
the summer of 81.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yep. Yep. So everybody, highly recommended. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling very nostalgic. No, that's not true. I'm very open right now. It's not nostalgia. I guess I want to share this, that I experience my life as somewhat like a pendulum now. I don't know how to word it, but it's that there are things happening. The crescendo of contracts and things with the center, and interpersonal challenges and things and they're happening, and there's one end of the pendulum where it's like, oh no, this is hard and I'm struggling with this and that, and the other is, it's perfectly okay. Here I am talking about Stephen 40 years ago. All these picayune struggly things are so inconsequential. And both poles are true. Well, shall we? Is anybody sitting with something you'd really like to share before we go? This mind. Happy trails to you until we meet again. So shall we go out on Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam? Ready? May all beings receive all blessings. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu.
I will be here. Today's Wednesday, right? I'll be here tomorrow and Friday morning. And then Jim and I are teaching a 5-day intensive retreat from Friday night through Wednesday noon. So we will not be here. There will be, I'm not sure who is doing each day, but Sunday morning there will be somebody else teaching, and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday mornings. So, aloha. I look forward to being with you. Thank you for your beautiful sharing, folks. Opening your hearts. Pretty incredible.
Be well, lovely Sangha.
That's all we get.
Oh, you want two more?
Yeah, I want the magical ritual.
You want the full benediction, don't you, Robert?
I want the incantation.
Here we go. Be well, be well, be well.
It's as though I have genuflected at the back of the church at the appropriate moment.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you,
Bye.
Bye.